According to the laws governing education, the right to education includes the right to access learning tools such as digital platforms and the internet. But many South African learners are being left behind in comparison with their global peers. Experts say this will have future consequences for South Africa's readiness to embrace the fourth industrial revolution. Compounding the issue is access to electricity, as the country's growing energy crisis forces disadvantaged poor learners. Joining us now is Shaatirah Hassim, an attorney at the Legal Resources Centre. Thank you very much for your time, Ms. Hassim. If we look to this issue of the digital divide, how much is it costing future South Africans who are busy learning and growing at the moment?
Hi, good afternoon. So it's quite serious, the issue, and quite detrimental, and South African learners are being left behind. And there's a huge digital divide, as our research paper put together by the LRC has shown, between previously disadvantaged learners and obviously learners in private schools and quintile 3 and 4 schools.
So government has a role to play here in terms of closing that gap. What has been and is being done, and is it working?
So government has put together norms and standards, and, they're supposed to roll out these regulations in place in terms of what they've put together. In 2013, they gave themselves a period within which to do so. From what we've seen, they haven't met those targets put in place by themselves. So they are falling short to provide every learner with access to platforms digitally. And those are mostly learners from disadvantaged backgrounds. So government is failing at the moment. They are not delivering, policies and norms and standards which they themselves have put together.
And in terms of the research you've done, how do we fare in comparison with perhaps neighboring countries on the continent when it comes to equipping young people with digital skills, tools, and even equipment to improve digital literacy?
So from what we've found, many of the provinces itself within South Africa are struggling with connectivity within their schools. In the northwest, connectivity sits at about 3.6%, Limpopo about 1.6%. So just from that data that we've drawn, you can see that we're not doing that great, and there's a need for us to obviously improve compared to neighboring countries as well. They're struggling too, but we need to deal with the difficulties within South Africa, within each province.
And you speak as someone who works for the Legal Resources Centre. We're talking about rights here, fundamental rights around education. What does it mean for young people to be sort of excluded or precluded from enjoying those rights when it comes to digital literacy and education? Did you catch
Sorry,
that?
I didn't hear your question.
Yes.
Just
so,
out there.
as a speaker from the Legal Resources Centre, obviously we're talking about a right which is an aspect of the right to education, a fundamental right for young people. What does it mean for them to be excluded or precluded from exercising that right around digital literacy?
So from what we've put together, and like you said, it's a fundamental right. And, right to basic education as enshrined in the Constitution is crucial for every single learner in South Africa. And coupled with that, from our research and from reports, it goes hand in hand with access to digital platforms. So for learners not to have the capability or the platforms to access education digitally, it's, we're going to be left behind. There's going to be a huge gap moving into a technological world. Learners won't have access to platforms for, looking at textbooks online or assisting them with information and research. And so it's going to be very difficult for us to keep up with the rest of the world if DBE and government doesn't provide these platforms to us.
Ms. Hassim, then just a last question. Is there any appetite within the Legal Resources Centre to try and drive this agenda of ensuring that right is exercised and met by the state in terms of any litigation?
So we've been looking at that. We've been discussing it and strategizing and, trying to find the gaps to obviously discuss this with DBE. And that's obviously your first point where you start discussion, roundtables. If that doesn't work, we will litigate because this is a serious issue. It must be dealt with. And it's something that needs to be attended to as soon as possible.
Shaatirah, Hassim there from the Legal Resources Centre, an attorney discussing their research into the digital divide.